Okay, Fei Long versus Liu Kang. This, of course, ends up being the fight that people talk about because they're the two people who are Bruce Lee ripoffs. Kind of. Fei Long is, with the exception of a little bit here and there, he is almost a direct, what's the term they used? Reimagination of Bruce Lee. And he's a character who started training at the age of 6, spent lots of time going in the world of street fighting. Beyond the Street Fighter tournament, was a very accomplished actor. Tall guy, very thin. I think I have him at like 5'7", like 130. So he's built like somebody you see on American Ninja Warrior. Introduced with a Super Street Fighter 2. Very quick character, very dynamic character. Pretty much looks like Bruce Lee. Has the sounds of Bruce Lee. Is from China. Just everything you think of Bruce Lee, that's what he is. On the other side, you have Liu Kang. Liu Kang, I've actually seen him in movies that were decent. He, of course, is a Shaolin monk, based primarily. That's why initially, his fatality was just a spinning cartwheel into an uppercut without any blood, because they didn't want a Shaolin monk to have any sort of killing. Of course, was in the first Mortal Kombat. Later on throughout the series, he of course transformed into a dragon to kill people or drop the arcade unit on them. I'm going to actually remove some of that. I want to remove the fatalities from it since there are no technical fatalities in the Street Fighter universe. It'd be unfair to keep those in when there's not an equivalent on the other side. Now, I do this differently from my comic fights. I have experience. This is how long has the character been going through fighting. In close, this is their really close. If you're playing an SNK game, this would be SNK Neo Geo. This would of course be when the sprites would become much more larger as you got much closer. Then I have reach, which is kind of your mid-range. Strength, how damaging is your attacks. Speed, how fast is your character. Energy projection, this is your distance. And versatility is what sort of additional moves do you throw in that weren't covered in the previous ones. So experience. This I'm actually going to give to Fei Long. Main reason why he actually started when he was 6. There really isn't a tremendous amount of background on Liu Kang. I don't know when he started training, but Fei Long began training at the age of 6 and went through the process of actually fighting people in the street to show how good he was when it came to his skill. So he actually has had more of the Bruce Lee style of training, where he had the initial martial arts indoctrinations, and then you had the actually going out and doing that against multiple individuals. Where on Liu Kang's side, it is a Shaolin monk. There's much more kind of cloistered effect. It's much more of the learning the background of the moves and hoping you never have to truly apply them. Where with Fei Long, again, being closer to a Bruce Lee style, where you have the combination of the physical aspects and the philosophical aspects, but also going out there and actually testing to see how good you truly are when it comes to your overall physical craft, beyond just the philosophical aspect of it. So I'm going to give the edge of that to Fei Long, in close. Man, I'll be honest, the Rekikens, and then, I forget, it essentially was his version of the Dragon Uppercut, but he used his leg. Great move, super strong and close. A lot of great moves. He very much is the when you're in close, he's going to dominate a fight. So he has a tremendous amount of ability at a close range. Once you get farther away, this is where his lack of moves kind of gives way to Liu Kang. Liu Kang, once you get to a little bit of distance, now all of a sudden you've got different bicycle kicks, the different single knockdown kick. You've got a lot more additional abilities that are going to allow him to cover a distance from mid-screen closer. You can make the argument that the Rekikens will allow him to get in close, but one of them is a short distance. You're going to do all three to actually get in close. The bicycle kick is going to be able to get in a couple of shots, even in a farther range. Strength. This I'm actually going to give to Liu Kang. And look at the physical stats on this. You got a guy who's 5'7", like 130, and the guy who I think I have now is 5'10", like 180. So you got a guy who's significantly bigger. And when you watch as they're doing their damage, you tend to see a little bit more on the damaging side come from Liu Kang. Speed. Man, Fei Long was a blitzer. The Rekiken move was ridiculous. Great way to cover some ground. Not as good as it came to the bicycle kick, but just a very, very quick character. Lots of moves were very crisp, very clean, very quick. Energy projection. Right, this is Liu Kang. Liu Kang had your fireballs, had your higher and your lower. So once you get to a distance, You know, this is an in-close fight. This definitely favors Fei Long. As he gets farther away, definitely is a Liu Kang fight. Actually, the versatility. This one, I had to sit down and really look through the moves they added on to later. You're probably thinking, what about the X-ray moves? I kind of look at the super combos that you see in Street Fighter kind of being somewhat equivalent to the X-ray combos. The X-ray combo is a very devastating maneuver, so difficult to pull off, where you see a similar thing for the super combos. And they both seem to be really, really close, until I found there's one extra ability that Fei Long has that I don't see in Liu Kang. And that is called tension. The idea behind it is it is a relatively in-close move that actually allows him to cartwheel over the back of his opponent and then have a virtually unblockable move right afterwards. So it's a quick move to get behind your opponent to then be able to pull off a quick combination. And it might seem like it's a little bit, but that's what I'm going to go with. You know, if this fight is at distance, it's a Liu Kang fight. As this fight goes into the mid-ground, it's still definitely a Liu Kang fight. But Liu Kang's going to have some better abilities at that range. But if you're going to take on someone in Fei Long who can get that range closer. And once he gets in close, you know, attention, roll over his back into a super combo, and you know, Liu Kang is going to go down. It's going to be a tough fight. It's going to be an undeniably tough fight. And it pretty much comes out these two guys are so even. But I had to go with the guy who's a little bit closer to the Bruce Lee background. And just gave him just a slight edge. Like I've said in other ones, you know, if it's you know, for good comics, if it's like 5-4, the person who gets 5 is going to win, you know, more often than not. I'm not saying that if it's 5-4 and it's 99 out of 100 times. It's more like, you know, 55, 60 times out of 100. Same thing with this. If Fei Long can close that distance, that speed in this in-close fight is going to take this. If Liu Kang can constantly keep this from like a half screen to a full screen battle, it's definitely Liu Kang.